So there was this thing about Joe Biden, and this is where the George Clooney thing comes into play. So George Clooney wrote an op-ed before the election, like for Biden to step down. It's not because George Clooney actually believed that, by the way. We found out exactly why George Clooney wrote that. We found out exactly why George Clooney wrote that. It had nothing to do with George Clooney and his civic duty, as George Clooney claimed. Do you want to know why George Clooney wrote that op-ed for Joe Biden to step down? Because Joe Biden was so far gone that he didn't even remember who George Clooney was. He didn't even remember who he was. Listen.
Here to unpack all of this, Charlie Hurd, Fox and Friends Weekend co-host, along with Ned Ryan, American Majority founder and CEO. Charlie, I know what some people are saying here. They're saying, let's give credit where credit is due because Jake Tapper is now reporting on this. So what do you say to that?
Well, you know, you kind of want to try to find somebody over there that you give some credit to, because it's sort of hard for us to believe, and we don't want to accept the idea that people really are this dishonest. But I love what he said. Liars lie about their lies. This is true. And this is just more liars lying about their lies. And I don't really know what is worse, whether or not they actually knew what was going on and they intentionally covered it up, or they were so deluded.
Stop pretending like they didn't know what was going on. We knew Joe Biden was gone before he even took office. Stop pretending like these evil fucking people, like the same people that are going to lose their minds over Trump 2028, thought it was perfectly fine to have a senile old man with potentially having Alzheimer's. They thought it was fine to have that man in the office. But it's so disrespectful to the office to consider Trump for 2028. But it was okay to have Joe Biden in office who didn't even have a fucking clue where he was at.
That they are only discovering it now because you've got a bunch of angry donors in the Democrat Party. The bottom line is, whether it was intentional or not at the time, they have to sort of do a much further evaluation and recognize that they are entirely, people like Jake Tapper are entirely captured by the Democrat Party. And they do whatever bidding needs to be done. And whether it's overt and intentional or just subliminal and it's how they breathe, either way, it leads to a totally dishonest and corrupt media. And I think that they have lost so much credibility that it almost doesn't even matter anymore.
And Ned, it was so bad, apparently, Biden didn't even recognize one of his close Hollywood pals. Watch.
Despite personally knowing him for more than 2 decades and Clooney's international fame as a movie star, Biden did not appear to recognize Clooney at that June 2024 fundraiser that Clooney was headlining, even after a Biden aide told the president, quote, "You know, George Clooney."
Ned.
That's why George Clooney wrote the op-ed right there, because his ego got disrespected. He's like, this man doesn't even know I'm the world famous George Clooney anymore. We have a serious problem. You always had a serious problem, but you didn't care. You always had a serious problem. And everybody knew that Biden was in this position, but you didn't care. And not until your ego got hurt did you decide to say something.
Remember when he walked out on stage? It was a very disturbing scene. But this had been a disturbing scene for all of us right now.
Years.
For you and for Charlie and for myself since 2020. 2020, not 2024, but 2020.
We were being told by Jake Tapper and others, don't believe the evidence of your eyes and ears. This man's fit as a fiddle, sharp as a tack. He probably does more work in an hour than the rest of the staff in the White House do all day.
What was it wasn't it Joe Scarborough that said that like Biden was sharper than he's ever been or something like that?
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years and You know, I don't know if people know this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what? I don't really care. Start your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
Go ahead.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
Holy shit. So let's go back to this right here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's remember this. The best he's ever been.
Watch.
Despite personally knowing him for more than 2 decades and Clooney's international fame as a movie star, Biden did not appear to recognize Clooney at that June 2024 fundraiser that Clooney was headlining, even after a Biden aide told the president, quote, you know, George Clooney.
Ned, remember when he walked out on stage? It was a very disturbing scene. But this had been a disturbing scene for all of us right now.
Years.
For you and for Charlie and for myself since 2020. 2020, not 2024, but 2020.
We were being told by Jake Tapper and others, you know, don't believe the evidence of your eyes and ears. This man's fit as a fiddle, sharp as a tack. He probably does more work in an hour than the rest of the staff in the White House do all day. And Jake was belittling people who brought up the issue of mental acuity when it was politically inconvenient. Now that it's politically convenient, Jake wants to frame himself as some bold truth teller.
Yes, he is only talking about it because it's convenient. He's not talking about it because it's the right thing to do. He's a coward, which is what most people in the media are, true cowards. He is a true coward.
He was either incredibly stupid and moronic, Laura, and was lied to and believed the lies about Biden's mental health, or he was actually a co-conspirator in the conspiracy of silence. And I tend to believe that as much as I dislike Jake and his views and his narratives, he's not stupid and a moron. He wasn't duped. Biden White House and Lady McBiden, because they wanted another 4 years. And I think that if it hadn't been for that disastrous debate in June of 24, Jake and his allies would have continued the lie through the elections and hoped that Biden got another term and then would have conveniently pushed him out so Kamala could be president. But now that the lie's over, might as well cash in on the lies and make some coin while I'm at it.
Oh, that's. I thought I was brutal until I just heard that, Ned. But Charlie, Senator Schumer actually got called out today for lying by the same group that helped cover up the other lie in the first place. Watch.
You were in there. You saw him up close and personal. Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward.
You don't want to talk about it, Schumer, do you? You don't want to talk about it.
Group that helped cover up the other lie in the first place. Watch.
You were in there. You saw him up close and personal. Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole.
You didn't want to look forward when Joe Biden was in office. All you did is spend time looking backwards at President Trump. But now you want to look forward. We just want to look forward. We just want to look forward.
We're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole federal government.
You're facing all of this
risk.
because you lost a presidential election. And is that not Joe Biden's responsibility for deciding to run again?
We're looking forward.
That's it?
That's it.
Jeez.
But again, Charlie, I think we are looking forward. Trump's doing all these deals in the Middle East, chalking up all these wins. So that's all forward. But this is an important story. Why is this important?
Oh, I think it's absolutely an important story. And we spent a lot of time talking about how the Democrat Party did true generational damage to their name, to their party, that I don't think that we will ever see them entirely get over because of the lies that they told and the corruption, the rigging of elections for the primary in 2024, everything that they have done. I don't think they'll ever get over it. But what we talk less about is the fact that so did the media. The media did existential, generational damage to its own credibility in a way that
Somebody just said this, and I agree completely. The energy that we just got from Chuck Schumer, very similar to this clip right here. Very similar to this clip right here.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator. Now,
what difference does it make, guys? Why do we need to worry about it? Why should I answer questions and details about it? That's exactly what Schumer just did.
I don't think that they're going to fare any better than Democrats will going forward.
And that is exactly right as well. If they could have, they would have pushed Biden over the finish line and then pushed him for the next 4 years as much as possible. And maybe at some point jettison him for Kamala. They would have covered up for Kamala. They did that as well. Charlie and Ned, brilliant analysis as always.
Last week, Joe Biden crawled out of his basement for a little damage control. But he wandered onto The View and accidentally reminded everybody why he dropped out in the first place.
That's exactly what happened. Like, him going on The View did nothing but hurt any of their arguments. Now we're at the point where Chuck Schumer can't even answer a question. He's scared to even answer a question. This appearance on The View was bad, was very, very bad.
The projects, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best healthcare in the world?
Not only did Biden destroy his legacy by staying in the race, he ruined Kamala's too. So Democrats are leaking like crazy to Jake Tapper. Biden's determination to seek re-election was an abomination. He stole an election from the Democratic Party. He stole it from the American people.
What?
Harris's 107-day campaign against Donald Trump was an effing nightmare. And it's all Biden. He totally effed us. Schumer's fingerprints were all over the coup, but his lips are sealed.
I'm interested to know whether the man that you...
This is why, go back to everything that I was saying before the 2024 election. Go back to the primaries, all of that. What did I say? If Trump doesn't win, it doesn't matter. Everybody that's running against Trump is actively running against the United States of America. Every single one of them. Everybody was in there. And I stand by that. I know there was Vivek and Van. I don't care. Donald Trump needed to win that election to right the wrongs of 2020. And if he did not win in 2024, if anybody else would have won, Republican or Democrat, we have lost. And we have lost everything.
Saw sitting there on that couch on that day. You were in there. You saw him up close and personal. Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole federal government.
You're facing all of this because you lost a presidential election. And is that not Joe Biden's responsibility for deciding to run again?
We're looking forward.
That's it?
That's it.
That's not it. Biden was in such bad shape. His handlers wanted to put him in a wheelchair. Joe Biden's physical deterioration was so severe in 23 and 24 that advisors privately discussed the possibility he'd need to use a wheelchair if he won re-election.
Wow. I did not know that. I did not know that they were considering putting him in a wheelchair. That is wild.
I'm in a wheelchair. Joe Biden's physical deterioration was so severe in 23 and 24 that advisors privately discussed the possibility he'd need to use a wheelchair if he won re-election. One more fall, and Joe would have been asleep at the wheels.
So the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, was telling White House aides that President Biden's deterioration of his spine, the degeneration, was so significant that if he fell one more time, that he might have to be in a wheelchair and serve in a wheelchair for his second term. But everybody pushed off the notion that he used a wheelchair until after the election.
Joe's spine wasn't just giving out. His memory was too. During his debate prep, all he was doing was napping and asking for cough drops. And he couldn't remember the name of his national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. He kept calling him Steve. And at that famous fundraiser where Barack had to push Joe off the stage, Biden didn't even recognize George Clooney. That's when Clooney knew he was shot. Anyone who doesn't recognize George is obviously not all there. But the cover-up was deep. Even though everybody was in on it, Tapper was like, I was duped. It's the White House's fault.
Dude, we all knew this. Do you remember how many of us called this out? This was a massive, massive amount of people that were calling this out. Again, in my humble opinion, YouTube removed the dislike button to protect the White House. Because if you remember, whenever Joe Biden would go live, every video would get massively ratioed for the White House. And not long after, they removed the dislike button to protect Joe Biden.
The bottom line is the White House was lying, not only to the press, not only to the public, but they were lying to members of their own cabinet. They were lying to White House staffers. They were lying to Democratic members of Congress, to donors about how bad things had gotten. And then after the election, we found out all of these things that when you looked at what was going on with President Biden at the time, it probably doesn't surprise you the extent to which he was deteriorating. But now we have anecdotes and facts about what was really going on behind the scenes with details that Democrats wouldn't share with us until after Election Day.
Jake,
what is the play here for the Democrats? Like, what do they think this is going to do? How do they think this is going to help right now? I don't know how this helps at all. I don't know what their play is, but there's got to be something else that maybe it's to throw all of this at Biden and throw him completely under the bus. But I don't know, man. I don't know if this is a very smart play. I really don't.
Jake's 50 and just found out politicians lie. Jake Tapper's getting paid to write what Fox was reporting 4 years ago. We didn't need sources. We had our own eyes and ears. What's Tapper's next book going to be? Biden's border crisis? If you had a time machine and went back a couple of years and read Tapper's book right to his face, he'd probably cut you off and call you an imbecile.
Yes, yes.
What we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to watch somebody on stage search for
it's so amazing. It's so amazing to me
and try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
If Biden had a decent debate, Tapper would have continued the cover-up, and they would have thrown Joe in the wheelchair the day after the election and said, look, he's just like FDR. They both beat the Nazis in wheelchairs. Is Joe in a wheelchair now? They don't care. They never did. He was just a warm body to shove against the door so Trump couldn't get into the White House. They couldn't even be honest, because if they were, it would have helped Trump win. So they destroyed their careers and their party for power. And now they have none.
I just don't see how this is a good, like, how does this help them? Donald Trump is surging everywhere. He's creating world peace. He's made America great again. The tariff situation has been really good for him. I know that there was a lot of, at first when he started to do it, there was a lot of panic and freak out from a lot of mentally weak people, but everything Trump is doing right now is strengthening everything for 2026. Like 2026 seems like we can gain in 2026 right now. And the Democrats have nothing. Who do they have? Seriously, who? Gavin Newsom? AOC? Crazy Bernie? They have nobody.
Is here. Lara, do you think Jake Tapper owes you an apology?
Well, you can see for yourself in that clip, it wasn't just enough for him to deny the cognitive decline that was obvious to everybody with eyes and ears in the United States of America and quite frankly around the world, Jesse. He had to go a step further. He had to shame me and insinuate in an astonishing insinuation that I was mocking someone with a stutter. Nobody knew Joe Biden even had a stutter, I don't believe. But that got me a lot of hate from a lot of people. Captain Sully went on to write an op-ed to shame me even further after that interview. So I'm expecting a full-throated public apology at any point. I'm holding my breath from Jake Tapper and maybe from Captain Sully as well. But this is the reason that the legacy media has lost the trust of the American people. Only about 25% of the country believes these people anymore and thinks they can actually trust them, because there's only one of two options here. Either Jake Tapper is just about the worst journalist who's supposed to investigate and research, and I mean, maybe was totally blind for about 5 years there, or he denied like they all did, tried to cover up what we all saw ourselves. And now that he can make a buck off of it, now all of a sudden he was duped by the White House. It's absolutely ridiculous, of course.
It really, it's embarrassing. Did you think about 2021? 2020 into 2021. Think about how bad things were with everybody getting banned from social media, Donald Trump getting banned from social media. The censorship was at an all-time high. Did you ever think we would be at the point where we are now? I mean, I always felt that we could get back to this point, but it was almost hard to believe we could get back to this point. And I still feel that we're not where we should be. We should be able to say anything we want online without being censored. We're still not there, but that's where we should be online. You should be able to say whatever you want. You should not be able to threaten or dox people. But you should be able to have whatever opinion you want, and you should be able to say whatever word you want. And we're not quite there yet, but we are so far beyond where we are or where we were in 2021. So yeah, man, I believe that we need answers about the 2020 election. We need to know exactly what happened. Well, we already know what happened. We need the details as to how it happened and who covered it up. We need to know. I hope that we get those answers, and maybe we will in time. Maybe.